Right now, somewhere outside your window, it's raining. And your first instinct without even thinking about it is to go inside. Grab a blanket, put something on, wait it out. That reflex feels so natural you've never once questioned it. Of course you go inside. Of course you stay dry. Of course you wait. But here's what nobody ever tells you. For the overwhelming majority of human existence, there was no inside. No roof, no walls, no door to close behind you. Just you, the sky, and whatever was falling out of it. Modern humans have existed for roughly 300,000 years. Permanent shelter, the kind with actual walls and a ceiling, only becomes widespread about 10,000 years ago at the very earliest. That means for approximately 290,000 years, rain wasn't an inconvenience your ancestors scheduled around. It was a full biological event they had to survive, navigate, and somehow live through every single time. And in 2019, researchers at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology published findings that stopped the entire field cold. What they discovered about how ancient humans actually responded to rain didn't just rewrite what we know about early survival. It rewrote what we think we know about human connection, emotion, and the mind itself. Let's start with what rain actually meant to a body that had never seen a radiator. Your core temperature is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Drop it by just 3.5 degrees and your muscles start seizing. Drop it by 7 degrees and your heart begins to fail. Hypothermia doesn't care how tough you are. It doesn't care how experienced you are. It just does the math and collects. And rain accelerates that math brutally fast. Water pulls heat from the human body roughly 25 times faster than air at the same temperature, which means a 60-degree rainstorm isn't a 60-degree problem. It's a 60-degree problem on a countdown timer. So what did they do? For decades, the assumed answer was simple. They found a cave. They huddled. They waited. Anthropologists essentially wrote ancient humans a very boring rain day. A prehistoric snow day where everyone just sat around being cold until the clouds cleared. That assumption held for most of the 20th century. Then, archaeologist April Nowell at the University of Victoria began compiling behavioral evidence from Paleolithic sites across 3 continents. What she and her colleagues found buried inside the archaeological record in the tool deposits, the fire remnants, the spatial arrangements of ancient campsites told a completely different story. Ancient humans didn't just survive rain. They used it, deliberately, strategically, and in ways that reveal a level of cognitive sophistication that our textbooks have consistently underestimated. Rain, it turns out, wasn't the enemy. Rain was a signal, a trigger, a biological cue that activated specific communal behaviors our species had been quietly developing for hundreds of thousands of years. Behaviors that, stripped of the mud and the mammoth hides, look almost exactly like things you still do today, without even knowing why. Here's the first thing that happened when rain came down. Everything got quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Predator quiet. Rain masks sound. It drowns out the snap of a twig, the rustle of grass, the low growl moving through the undergrowth toward you. Every sensory advantage your ancestors had spent their entire lives sharpening gone, washed out by white noise falling from the sky, which meant the moment rain started, the threat level didn't drop, it spiked. And so ancient humans did something that no other primate does with anywhere near the same consistency or complexity. They pulled together, physically, deliberately. Bodies closing distance, voices lowering, eyes scanning outward. Anthropologists call it threat-induced proximity clustering. Scientists call it an evolved survival response. You probably just call it the feeling of wanting to be around people when the weather turns bad. That instinct you feel on a gray, rainy Sunday. The one that makes you want company, warmth, conversation that isn't a personality trait. That is a 300,000-year-old alarm system still running in your chest. But here's the second gap, the one that's even harder to explain. Rain didn't just pull ancient humans together physically. It made them talk differently. Primatologist Robin Dunbar at Oxford University, the same researcher who gave us the theory of social brain size, found compelling evidence that forced proximity under environmental stress consistently produced one specific behavior above all others. Storytelling. Not logistics, not problem-solving, not silence. Story. When the rain pinned them down and the threats closed in and the world went loud with water, ancient humans turned to each other and began to narrate. What they said in those moments built something that still holds us together today. Now here's the part that changes everything you just heard. We've been talking about rain as a problem ancient humans had to manage, a threat they responded to, a force they survived. But the twist is this. Rain was the most productive thing that ever happened to the human mind. In 2017, neuroscientist default mode network researcher Marcus Raichle at Washington University published work confirming something that should have been obvious but somehow wasn't. The human brain doesn't rest when the body stops moving. It activates. Specifically, it fires up the default mode network, the neural architecture responsible for imagination, empathy, future planning, and narrative construction. And what triggers the default mode network most reliably? Forced stillness. Reduced external stimulation. Exactly what a rainstorm produces. Rain wasn't interrupting ancient human productivity, rain was creating it. Every hour spent sheltering bodies pressed together, voices weaving stories, minds running inward, was an hour the human brain spent doing the most sophisticated cognitive work it is capable of. Building social bonds, simulating future scenarios, processing emotional experience through narrative. Rain was essentially a mandatory cognitive upgrade, delivered free, every few days, whether your ancestors wanted it or not. And here is where it lands directly in your chest. You live in the driest cognitive environment in human history. Not dry, as in no rainfall. Dry as in no forced stillness, no mandatory pause. No moment where the world simply stops and makes you sit with yourself and the people around you. Your phone fills every gap. Your calendar fills every silence. The moment boredom even begins to surface, you have 17 mechanisms designed by billion-dollar companies to immediately bury it. And the default mode. Network, the same neural system your ancestors fired up every time the clouds broke, barely gets to run. The restlessness you feel on a quiet Sunday. The discomfort that creeps in the moment you have nothing to do. The almost physical need to reach for your phone within seconds of stillness. That isn't weakness. That is a brain desperately trying to do what rain used to make it do. And nobody is letting it. Think about the last time it rained and you actually stopped. Not ducked into a building. Not opened an umbrella and kept moving. Not pulled out your phone while you waited under an awning. Actually stopped. And let it happen around you. Most people can't remember. And that's not a small thing. That's the entire thing. For 290,000 years, rain was the great equalizer. It didn't care how fast you were moving or how much you had to do. It came down, and you stopped, and you turned toward the people nearest to you. And something profoundly human happened in that space. Stories got told that wouldn't have been told. Bonds got built that wouldn't have been built. Minds went somewhere they couldn't go while they were busy surviving. The rain made room for the parts of us that daylight didn't have time for. And then we built roofs good enough to forget it. We built schedules that don't pause for weather. We built devices that make stillness feel like a malfunction. We engineered the most sophisticated civilization in planetary history, specifically, so that nothing, not darkness, not cold, not rain could ever slow us down again. And we called that progress, but somewhere in the architecture of your brain, behind the noise and the notifications and the relentless forward motion, there is a very old system still listening for rain, still waiting for the signal to slow down, still expecting the world to occasionally force you into stillness so the most important parts of being human can finally have room to breathe. The rain still comes. We just stopped letting it mean anything. And every time you run from it, head down, hood up, racing for the nearest door, you are running from the thing that built you,